Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory. I am Jesse Friedman alongside Jack Sommers. And Jack, the Diamondbacks did some good things in their three-game series against the San Diego Padres, but hitting with runners in scoring position was not one of them. They went 0 for 17 in the final two games of that series and ultimately lose 2 out of 3.
Yeah, and I mean, the offense and the bullpen took turns putting pressure on each other. The combination of not being able to get the big hits to lengthen a lead that they had, and then, the pressure to try to build on that lead, knowing that you have a bullpen that's probably going to give up the lead. If they don't win going away, if they don't win, if they don't get a 5, 6, 7 run lead, it's just hard to see this team winning against another team that has a good bullpen.
It was striking yesterday, to say the least, the difference in the bullpens, Jack. I know it's pretty obvious. The Padres obviously have made some significant investments in that regard here in recent days. But, I think it was 4 1/3 innings, 1 hit allowed. Of course, no runs, 7 strikeouts for the Padres bullpen. And then on the Diamondback side, we saw it was not great. Anthony DeSclafani was good starting that game, didn't allow a run, and then the D-backs bullpen allowed 3 runs in relief the rest of the way. I just more of the same, Jack. More of this Diamondbacks team just struggling to win these 50-50 games. I think after the game last night, this team is now 12-21 in one-run games, and unfortunately, that's a pretty big variable for how you're going to do over the course of a season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are plenty of good teams that end up around 500 in one-run ball games. That's fairly standard. If you got 33 games, I mean, arguably you should be 17-16.
Right.
Those 50-50 games, that's an additional 5 losses. Give them those 5 more wins, they're still not anywhere near the playoffs. So
Yeah, maybe there's some comfort to be had there for sure.
well, I
Uh,
don't want to say comfort. I'm just saying that, like, there's even more issues than that.
Yeah, that is very fair. You can't reduce the Diamondbacks' problems down to uh, just not being able to convert in those one-run games for sure. As I mentioned, Anthony DeSclafani was pretty good in the game. 4 1/3 innings, 3 hits, no runs. I know some people were not happy to see him removed from the game as early as he was. He threw 71 pitches, but I also know Torey Lovello talked about this after the game, and this is a player who's coming off arm surgery, and I think you can understand Torey having the hook when he did in that Wednesday night game.
Well, the medical team and the pitching coaches, I mean, they outlined the plan, and the limit was 70 pitches. That's what hit Torrey's desk. Okay, I mean, I've explained this ad nauseum. The medical team and the pitching coaches work together to determine where the pitcher, who's available, who's not, return to play protocol. And we've just gone over this so many times, but people don't want to hear it. They just want to rip. But the bottom line is he threw 60 pitches in his previous outing. His pitch limit going into last night's game was 70, and he threw 71. And, how he felt about being pulled, I mean, it was all discussed beforehand. He knew going in what his limit was. The decisions were made. That's how they're operating because they don't want the guy to get hurt. We've seen with all the injuries that these things may not help keeping guys from getting hurt. But certainly, blowing by, medical team guidance and pitch limits. I mean, if everybody wants to see Torey Lovello fired, that's what he should do. He should totally disregard all the information that he gets from the medical team and the guidelines that are presented to him and just says, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do whatever the heck I want because the fans demand it. I mean, let's be adults about this.
As much as the quick hook on DeSclafani and the bullpen are going to maybe grab the most headlines for D-backs fans, certainly capture their attention the most, the offense did not do nearly enough in this game, Jack. I believe they started the night 3 for 5 against Nestor Cortez, and then they had 1 hit the rest of the game. And of course, as I said earlier, they also didn't have a hit with runners in scoring position. This is an offense that, of course, is without 2 of its better hitters from this season in Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez. And the 2 great hitters that this team does still have, Jack, in Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte, neither of those guys have really produced at an elite level for going on a month now, maybe even longer than that with Corbin. So it's just an offense that feels so different from what we've seen most of this 2025 season.
Yeah, our good friend Nick had a really good article. He had a good interview with Corbin, speaking about what it's been like for him coming back from the injury, how many swings and the type of contact that he actually felt pain on. The consensus with the medical team was that he's not going to injure it any worse. It's simply a matter of pain tolerance, and that pain has certainly been there on and off. But it's better now than it was a month ago, and we're starting to see some harder hit balls. Maybe there's some inconsistency with regards to plate discipline and pitch selection and what he's chasing after. He said that being down for a while kind of messed with his timing a bit. So hopefully he's getting his timing back. I mean, he hit a 450-foot home run last night, so that's pretty good production with a 443 feet. It was Josh Naylor that hit the 450-foot homer. Happened to notice that, but that's
Yes.
a pretty good swing of the bat for a guy that's still recovering from a broken wrist. So Corbin Carroll, he's a stud. I mean, if he gets his timing back and kind of figures out laying off some of those chase pitches, he's probably ready to go on another little run here.
Speaking of Josh Naylor, Jack, we hadn't really planned to discuss this, but what do you make of Josh Naylor being, I think it's 10 for 10 in stolen bases since since joining the Mariners organization? I know he was doing pretty well in that regard with the Diamondbacks as well, but this is absurd what Josh Naylor is doing right now as a base runner.
Look, you can't stop Josh Naylor on the base pass. You can only hope to contain him. I mean, Ricky Henderson's records are about to fall.
I think so. At the rate he's going, at least with this new Mariners team, it's been pretty crazy to watch. Well, this is a mailbag episode. We are very excited to jump into all of your mailbag questions, and we'll do that on the other side of this break.
Kratz, there are a lot of people out there that pay rent and they don't get anything for it.
Might as well change that. You can get some rewards for flights, hotels, tons of stuff.
With Built, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards airlines, hotels, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and much more. It doesn't stop there. Built is about making your entire neighborhood more rewarding. You can dine out at your favorite local restaurants and enjoy experiences just for Built members every month. They're turning a monthly expense into an opportunity to earn rewards and discover the best that your neighborhood has to offer. Your rent is finally working for you. Earn points on rent and around your neighborhood, wherever you call home, by going to joinbuilt.com/foul. That's joinbilt.com/FOUL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/foul. Go for it.
We are back here on Snakes Territory, ready to dive into your mailbag questions. So let's go ahead and do that. The first one comes from our good friend Casey Thorne over on Twitter. Casey said, "What do you think the D-backs have to do / has to go right to be in the position where they are buying at next year's trade deadline?" And Jack, this is a big one that I've kind of been thinking of for a while now, even a little bit more broadly. Can the Diamondbacks actually contend in 2026? We know that they are going to try, but is that actually a realistic goal for them with all of the talent that is coming off the roster this winter? What do you think when you see this question from Casey?
Well, it's very difficult to telescope out of the current morass that they're in, right?
Yes.
I mean, they are deep in a swamp. They're not playing well. The roster looks very iffy. Everyone can see there's still players to come off the roster. There's young players that aren't quite ready. And of course, no Corbin Burns and no Justin Martinez and probably no AJ Puck before the All-Star break for sure. So, there's not a lot of help coming that way. The one thing I will say is that Mike Hazen is pretty good at trading. He's made a lot of really good trades. So it's very difficult to evaluate just where the team's going to be next year before we've seen what trades he's been able to pull off during the offseason. My guess is there probably going to be at least a couple of trades and maybe a critical signing here or there that we say, okay, there's a window here where they could compete again. We'll probably have that spring optimism at that point in time. As far as what it's going to take to be buyers, you got to win. You got to be in contention. So that just goes back to, can the team compete in 2026? Don't forget that there's the very large specter of a lockout on the horizon in 2027. I think there's likely to be some unspoken collusion. I think that I wouldn't want to be a free agent entering 2026 or 27, honestly. I wouldn't want to be a free agent that's expecting a multi-year deal at a high dollar volume. A lot of the 1 and 2 year guys, they'll do fine. But, if you're a guy that's looking at a 4 or 5 year potential window, say like a Josh Naylor, where teams are going to look at the money and say, well, do I want to spend that much when, really we're not even sure if we're going to play in 2027 due to a lockout and a fight over salary cap. Let's kind of hold back a little bit and see what happens in 27, and we'll kind of reload it for 28. So I think a lot of these middling teams like the Diamondbacks are going to be in that boat.
Yeah, that's a good point. Certainly something we're going to be talking more about heading into next season and the whole ruckus that I'm sure those CBA negotiations will be. I think for me, Jack, whether the Diamondbacks are able to contend next year comes down to at least a couple of things that I have in my head. The first is, what do the infield corners look like in 2026? Are you able to get some sort of decent production from those spots? It doesn't have to be It doesn't have to be, a combined 50 home runs in half a season, like basically what the Diamondbacks got this year. But is there a path there for the team to get some value out of those positions? That's going to be important. I also, of course, think about the starting pitching. Who's replacing Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly? We expect there's probably one and I think probably even two external additions that are going to be made there. So, what does that look like? And then, of course, what does the bullpen look like in 2026 as Mike Hazen tries to build out a unit with a little bit more depth? I think he has a decent head start on that, at least from a depth standpoint, given all of the pieces he just acquired at the trade deadline. But I imagine the D-backs will want some more established guys as well, and whatever moves they make in that regard are going to have a really big role to play in next season as well. So, I guess I'm touching on basically every aspect of the team, but the Diamondbacks have certainly a lot of questions to answer here as the offseason approaches. Our next question comes from Brighton Bobbitt over on Twitter. Who are guys that their future with the team beyond this year could be on the line if they don't play well the rest of the year / someone else comes in and does significantly better? Jack, I know you made a list of a few of these guys that came to mind for you.
Yeah, I think that there's players that are potential non-tender candidates that are ARB eligible, right? Players that are going to be arbitration eligible, which means at various stages of arbitration. There's 3 seasons typically, and those include Jake McCarthy, Pavin Smith, the injured Kevin Ginkel. We still don't know the full extent of his injury, only that he's out for the rest of the year. He's been placed on a 60-day IL. Ryan Thompson and Jose Herrera. So those are 5 guys that are arbitration eligible. They're going to be, varying degrees of expensive relative to pre-ARB players. And, your mileage may vary as to what you think or who they should keep and who they should let go. But these are all guys' names to consider. Couple of guys that are pre-arbitration out of options. Blaze Alexander, which I was a little surprised to see that on roster resource at Fangraphs. This was his last option season, according to them. So I need to follow up and find out if that's absolutely correct. I thought last year was his first call-up, but the other is Jorge Barosa. I think Blaze is probably giving himself a pretty good shot here at being, on the opening day roster as a utility man, not the starter. But we'll see how the rest of the season goes there. Jordan Lawler is probably going to supplant him within a couple of weeks to get, most of the playing time in third. And then there's current free agents that who knows who's coming back and who's not. Anthony DeSclafani, Jalen Beeks, James McCann, Kendall Graveman, assuming they decline his option, Jake Woodford, and John Curtis. So there's a long list of guys that may not be back. Now, probably, one of the more interesting guys there is James McCann because the team doesn't have a lot of catching depth. And if they got rid of both Herrera and McCann, they have nobody to back up the very injury-prone Gabriel Moreno. So we'll see what they do there as well.
Yeah, and I guess there's also an element of just, which players might this team look to trade in the offseason? And I think Jake McCarthy and Alek Thomas, we've been talking about those guys for years now, is, there's some depth there for the organization. Maybe that's something they look to deal from at a certain point. I think how both of those guys play down the stretch is definitely important as well. Yeah, I don't know, Jack, are we missing anyone? I feel like we've probably covered our bases there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the list is not meant to be absolutely 100% correct, but it just kind of gives you an idea. There's think of it in those terms, though. Arbitration eligible non-tender candidates because they're expensive, pre-arb guys that are out of minor league options, and then free agents. And if you kind of go through the various resources that show those guys, you can find those at Baseball Reference. You can find it at Fangraphs Roster Resource. You can find all those lists. Those are the names to look at.
I think Adrian Del Castillo is another interesting name to watch. The organization isn't going to move on from him or something if he doesn't finish out 2025 well necessarily, but it still is important how he plays here the next couple of months as the team looks to see what they want to do going into 2026.
He's going to be optioned as soon as Pavin Smith comes back.
Yeah, I guess that's true, huh?
Yes.
I mean, there are other guys that they could option, right? Like Connor Kaiser is with the big league club right now. Maybe they would go that direction.
Lawler.
I guess when Jordan Lawler comes up, then that takes that spot. And then, of course, Tim Tawa is still down in the minors. So, yeah, I guess you're right, Jack. Maybe there isn't really room for Adrian Del Castillo to stay in the big leagues much longer, which feels unfortunate given the state that this team is in right now. I mean, that's exactly the type of player you'd like to learn more about in this stretch of time, but we'll see. Maybe that doesn't happen. Our next mailbag question comes from our friend Ryan Sprouse over on Twitter. Ryan said, this team seems to have a glut of MLB-adjacent infielders: Tommy Troy, J.D. Dix, Blaze Alexander, Jordan Lawler, Tim Tawa, Ivan Melendez, with both middle infield spots filled for a while and first base runway given to Locklear. What is the path to an active roster spot for that group? What does success look like? Jack, I'll start with you on this one. What do you think?
Well, I think Ryan's is exactly right to focus in on this. I just mentioned that I expect Mike Hazen to make trades. He also has players a little lower down that rank pretty highly on MLB Pipeline that aren't quite ready to join the majors. So between those guys, the higher ranked prospects and fellows like that are on Ryan's list, those are players, at least a couple of them are probably going to be traded this offseason for pitching. I mean, look, you have this glut of position players. It depends on who other teams want and who they're interested in, who they're in on. Certainly, Tommy Troy is making a name for himself and upping his trade value quite a bit. He's also upping his potential value for the team. I think one of the big questions related to this is a lot of people have been wondering, speculating whether or not Ketel Marte should or will move to full-time DH, or would they slide him over to first base, thus opening up second base, opening up some middle infield reps beyond the get him a day off his feet. And, to date, no indication from the team that they're close to doing that. He's going to be 32 next year. My guess on that is they're not going to try to do that next year, but if his defense continues to kind of step back from the higher levels it's been at, he still makes some really great plays and looks really quick sometimes, but the numbers are the numbers. I mean, he's not as productive defensively as he once was, and that's only going to get worse as he gets older, just the way it is. So, the team may get there sooner or later, but not as fast as a lot of people would like, probably.
I'm not too worried about this personally. I feel like, there's a lot of question marks with a lot of these guys. Tommy Troy certainly is playing well right now. He just hit his first AAA home run yesterday, I believe. But he still has quite a bit to prove, right? There's a history with him of struggling with breaking stuff, I think in maybe a similar way as with Jordan Lawler. Certainly Lawler himself is not necessarily a finished product. We've seen him struggle in the majors, and J.D. Dix is promising, but he's still a ways away. Blaze Alexander, I think, could be fine in a utility type role. He's proven to be valuable defensively, as we've discussed here in recent days. And Ivan Melendez, I think there's still some long-term questions there of how that bat is going to play. So I'm not overly worried about it at this point, Jack. But I think you just want to see all those guys continue to progress and continue to knock on the door, and these things have a way of ultimately working themselves out. So we'll see what happens on that front.
Just a point on that. If there's anything to worry about, it's whether or not these guys will knock on the door hard enough. Right? You kind of alluded to that. I mean, What the best case scenario is these guys are knocking on the door so darn hard that the team has to make a move. They have to force the issue. And if they're not able to force the issue, all that means is they're not coming along the way you'd hoped. And that reduces their trade value if you're trying to flip them for pitching. Yeah,
that's a good point. Well, we have a few more mailbag questions to get to, and we will do that on the other side of this break.
It's summertime, it's bathing suit time, and it's time to get a better bathing suit liner. It's 2025, Kratz. I would like to feel more comfortable, and I would like to thank Fair Harbor for doing that.
It's super easy. Get the Fair Harbor Breeze Knit liner in your shorts. You can go play football on the beach. You can play paddleball, and you don't got to worry about that crappy liner that other bathing suits have.
It is so comfortable. You got to check it out. I'm telling you, it's like butter, baby. You got to check out the Fair Harbor, not only bathing suits, but they carry a full line of casual clothing, shorts, shirts, hoodies. Go to the website, fairharborclothing.com/foul, and use code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase. That's fair, HARBOR clothing.com/foul for 20% off your first purchase. And make sure that you use the FT promo code so that they know we sent you and you get the discount, FOUL.
Our next mailbag question comes from Michael Rokicki over on Twitter. Michael said, what D-backs prospects are you hoping to see with the Salt River Rafters? Of course, Salt River Rafters are the Arizona Fall League team that we are used to seeing the Diamondbacks a part of. And Jack, I know you have a little list here that you put together. I'll let you start running through some of these names.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind with the Fall League is usually teams are kind of assigned a priority position. So, for example, they'll get a choice like, do I want to emphasize catcher, or do I want to emphasize first base, or do I want to emphasize third or shortstop? So that kind of like teams get to, it's kind of almost like I think a draft where they get to pick and choose, but it's a rotational thing because there's 6 major league organizations comprise a 35-man roster, or five organizational comprise a 35-man roster, and there's turnover in that roster. So I just want to mention that first, but back to the list real quickly. So Slade Caldwell, I mean, he's the youngest, second youngest player, I think Jesse Borick told us the other day in high A. But I think it would be pretty cool to see him, even though he's kind of struggled at high A this year, not quite a bit, actually. I wouldn't mind seeing him. I'd like to just get eyes on him and see what he looks like. Kind of the same for Ryan Waldschmidt. He's struggled quite a bit in Double A. I think both of those guys could benefit by the extra reps in the Fall League. And because it's such a hitter's environment, maybe kind of up their confidence and set them up for, better seasons next year, where they're probably going to have to go back and start off at the level they're at now. J.D. Dix, just seems to be advancing really nicely. I would love to see him. And Hansel Luis is a name that a lot of people don't really think about much, but I think he's a pretty darn good middle infield player. With pitchers, it's a little tougher because there's innings limits. I mean, I'd love to see Daniel Egan, but by the time the season's over, he's probably going to be well over 100 innings. don't think the team will send him to send relievers and starters that haven't gotten the full complement of innings in 2025. But Mitch Bratt, Daniel Egan, David Hageman, based on Mike Hazen's comment about how great his stuff is, Ashton Izzy, perhaps, and then reliever Hayden Dirk. Yordin Chalice was a reliever converted to starter this year. He's at 58 innings pitched, and they're really trying to move along his development by using him as a starter, where they feel like he can get more innings in and thus advance his development. He's still probably going to end up a reliever in the end. But that's a guy I think everyone would enjoy watching pitch. And of course, Hunter Cranton, who went on the injured list with a groin discomfort. So a guy that's already had very limited innings pitched. I would say almost 100% certain Hunter Cranton, if healthy, is going to be in the Arizona Fall League.
Yeah, and he would be a pretty fun one to watch based on the reports we've heard about his fastball and how electric that pitch is. It would be pretty cool to see. It's a pretty complete list, Jack. The only names that come to mind for me, and I'm not totally sure how likely these are, but Christian Mena obviously has not pitched a whole lot this year. He's been out much of the season at this point with that right teres major injury, I believe it is. So maybe there's a world where he comes back right around the fall league and the D-backs want to use that to get him some reps. I think it's possible. The other name that is probably way out there, Jack, that comes to mind, but I wonder about is Dre Jameson. Dre Jameson obviously has not pitched much at all this season in his road back from Tommy John surgery. I believe he's been on a rehab assignment here most recently. I don't know, Jack, do you think it's crazy to imagine Dre Jameson maybe getting some run in the fall league?
Absolutely not crazy at all. I think that definitely fits the criteria of, bringing guys that were injured and didn't get enough innings and getting them another handful or 5 or 10 or 15 innings in the fall league. I mean, that's how the team has traditionally used the fall league pitching slots.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe it's possible. If you're a big Dre Jameson fan, maybe you could see him right in our own backyard in Arizona over that Arizona Fall League period. Moving on here to our next question. This comes from Omar. Omar said, "What are the chances Christian Robinson is able to be up in the majors either this year or next?" Jack, of course, Christian Robinson was recently promoted to AAA. So he's starting to kind of knock on the door here. I know his numbers in AA were good, but maybe not great. So I feel like there's still a little distance for him to make up here.
Yeah, the biggest thing with Christian Robinson for me, and this sounds a bit Debbie Downer, even before 2020 and that whole incident that kept him out, I actually had concerns about his swing and miss issues. Physically talented, skill-wise, he was off the charts, excellent. But the swing and miss issues have been something that I've really had concerns on back in 2019. And so the question is, are those holes closed up enough to make him able to stick at the major league level? The returns on that are pretty mixed. I mean, the swing and miss issues are still there. We'll see. At the same time, it's great to see him advancing through the system. He's a terrific guy. I mean, when you talk to him, he's a sweetheart. I mean, I know he had a bad incident, but that's in the past, and I really hope that everyone forgives him for that. I understand that. Look, I think a lot of people were very upset that was a law enforcement officer that he took a swing at, and that's what resulted in him getting arrested and having all these issues. But that's well in the past, and I don't think it's representative of who he is today. I've had numerous opportunities to talk to him, and so I do want to just bring that out when we talk about Christian Robinson. Give the guy a break as far as that's concerned. Now, when we talk about baseball, he's got to close up that hole.
It hasn't been a huge sample for him so far in AAA, but it does sort of kind of go along with some of the concerns that you outlined there. In 8 games, 39 plate appearances, he's hitting 188, with a 57 WRC plus in AAA, a strikeout rate of 28.2%, which isn't, it's actually a little lower than it was in AA. So I guess you could be happy about that, but you'd probably like to see that somewhere in the low mid 20s before, you really feel good about bringing Christian Robinson to the majors. So I think it's possible that we see Robinson at some point in the next year, but probably more likely it's going to happen next year than this year. Our last question, Jack, comes from Joey over on Twitter. Joey said, since everyone is being evaluated for the remaining games, is it fair to say the front office has seen enough to know these journeyman bullpen arms have no future with the team and are taking spots from players that have performed well in Reno that deserve a look? And Jack, this is a question I've seen a number of times in recent days. People are getting a little tired of watching maybe the Jake Woodfords of the world and the John Curtises, players that the team has picked up over the course of the season and at times have filled in fairly nicely, but pretty clearly are not part of the long-term future of the organization.
Yeah, I do think that we're not too far away from at least a couple of these guys that are in Reno right now. The stuff guys especially get called up or get called back up. But I think it's important to be pretty objective too. Like, all right, let's just go through the names real quick. Juan Burgos, 25 years old, right-hand pitcher. He's got 13 innings combined above AA. Right. That includes 6.2 innings in MLB, 3 and a third with Seattle and in AAA, and 3 with Reno. So in those 13 innings, he's given up 6 runs, 16 hits, 6 walks, and 12 strikeouts. His sinker is 96 mile an hour, but he's not getting in Reno. He's not getting any whiffs on the pitch. Right.
Yeah, it's not really a whiff pitch.
Right. I mean, he's got plenty of swing and miss on his cutter and sweeper, however, which he threw more often. So, I mean, let's see what happens there. But the minor league Statcast data is showing the same thing, right? And if he's not getting, ground ball double plays with the sinker and, the sweeper is getting hit because he's not locating it, then he's got a little bit more development to go. Hayden Dirk, I mean, like he was just screaming through high A and double A. In 32 innings, he struck out 54 guys, right, in a microscopic ERA. But since he's gotten to Reno, in 9 innings, he's given up 12 runs, 11 earned. He's got 11 ERA. That's on 9 hits, including a homer, 5 walks, and 9 strikeouts. His four-seamer's 95 miles an hour at AAA. It's not 100. He's getting a lot more success with his cutter. I mean, that's where he's getting his swing and miss and low batting average against. He hasn't gotten a strikeout yet on the curveball, and he hasn't thrown enough of them. He's only thrown 39. So, does Hayden Dirk, who's got all of 9 innings above AA, need to be called up right now? I don't know. Then you have Brandon Garcia. All right. Now, Brandon Garcia has gotten a couple of stints in the majors, between Seattle and the D-backs. He's faced 20 batters. Right, it doesn't tell you much. He's recorded 10 outs, given up 8 hits, walked 4, hit a batter, and struck out just 1. Sent back to AAA Reno, he's faced 10 batters and given up 2 hits, both solo homers. He's walked 1 and struck out 3. I mean, is he ready? The stuff is good. Sure, he's got a 97-mile-an-hour sinker, but is he going to be able to come up to the major leagues, throw strikes, and get outs? There's some development that still needs to be done there. And then our good friend Juan Murillo, he has the 100-mile-an-hour fastball, right? I mean, we've seen what he can do. He's got a 5 ERA in the majors, close to it, 4.94, a K9 over 10, but a walk 9 over 5. So since he's been sent back to AAA Reno this most recent time to work on mechanics and work on control, 6 2/3 innings, 6 walks, 8 strikeouts, and he's issued at least 1 or more walks in 5 straight outings. Has Juan Murillo done what the team is asking him to do, which is refine his mechanics and throw strikes in AAA? You be the judge.
Yeah, I think that's all very fair. Another name that comes to mind on this front, Jack, is Austin Pope, who has put up pretty good numbers in Reno so far. He has a 1.54 ERA since being promoted up there. I guess he also spent his entire 2024 season in Reno. So is there a case to be made to like call up Austin Pope as opposed to some of these veteran players that we see right now? I think you could probably make that case. He was activated from the injured list back on July 1st, so I'm not entirely sure what that injury was. I don't know if you know. He missed about a month with that, but he's back now. So maybe we see Austin Pope at some point down the stretch, but his peripherals in AAA are not anything spectacular either. I think he has 10 strikeouts in 11 and 2/3 innings compared to 5 walks. So, it's not like he's necessarily been dominant in that respect. I guess the big picture answer here, Jack, is that yes, a lot of these guys do have more long-term potential than some of the relievers in the majors right now, but at the same time, you want to give them time. You don't want to rush them in the majors, rush them to the majors just because you don't have a great slew of options right now in the big leagues.
And, I hate to say this because it's going to unleash a torrent, but, service time issues could be a concern in some cases. Maybe,
With a reliever, I don't know.
Yeah, probably not. But, the point being here overall is some of these guys are going to come up pretty soon. I mean, they're definitely going to cut bait on a couple of these journeyman relievers and bring up a couple of young guys. It's not like none of them are coming up. My point in going through that list was just to say, hey, be careful what you wish for, because if they come up in the next week or two and they're not really fully cooked, when I say cooked, I mean like, oven ready.
Yeah.
If they're not fully, developed, it's going to be just as rough, if not rougher, but then you have the value of their development. And does that help them move along faster and help the team evaluate better for 2026? So there's definitely value in that. And I expect at least 2 or 3 of these guys to get up here between now and September 1st.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We might not see him tomorrow, but I think we're going to see at least a couple of these guys here before the end of the season. Well, that concludes our mailbag. Thank you to all of you who submitted questions. We really appreciate it. As you see here on the screen, you can follow us over at Snakes Territory on Twitter. That's generally where we take most of our mailbag questions. So if you're not following us there already, be sure to do that. You can also follow me and Jack on Twitter as well. I am at Jesse N. Friedman. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. Jack does a great job covering the Diamondbacks over at si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. You can find all of his work covering the team over there. And of course, be sure to like this video if you're joining us on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Those things help us out tremendously. And if you're listening to us over on an audio-only platform, it would really mean a lot to us if you would leave us a rating and review. That helps us out a lot as well. And of course, as always, if you haven't gotten your Snakes Territory merch over at snakesterritoryshop.com, you can do that over at snakesterritoryshop.com. Shout out to Eric, who placed an order here in the last day or so. We really appreciate all of you doing that and supporting us in that way. Well, that's everything that we have for this episode of Snakes Territory. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll be back with another episode very, very soon.